In this video, Reverend Dr. Dikki Jo Mullen will discuss the astrological effects of the new moon on May 19th, 2023. In addition to the implications of the full moon, Dr. Mullen will offer information about the positive effects of fungi and the important contributions of trees in our lives. Dr. Dikki Jo Mullen explains the Wood Wild Web, one of the oldest social networks, whereby the trees, plants, and animals interact with one another. The importance of the mother tree illustrates the sense of intimate connections trees have with the earth and a range of sentient beings. Dr. Mullen talks about Beatrix Potter and her contributions beyond her children's stories, and finally provides a brief visit with Evangeline Adams, an astrologer who provided readings for J.P. Morgan. Now we will listen to Dr. Mullen's lecture.
I'm Dikki Jo Mullen in downtown Orlando, Florida, astrologer and paranormal investigator, taking a look at the new moon on May 19th of 2023 and what it means for the next 4 weeks. The new moon, from full moon to full moon, new moon to new moon, will always be 4-week-long cycles, with the 2-week-long period being either the next part of the lunar cycle. If it's a new moon, then it'll be a full moon, or if we're looking at a full moon, then it'll be a new moon the next 2 weeks. It's a calendar that tells us what to expect, both in our own lives and in the world around us. This lunation is going to be at 28 degrees of Taurus, and that's in the constellation Pleiades. Also especially conjunct Alcyon, one of the 7 daughters, who represents the stars, the daughters of Atlas, that are a part of that powerful constellation. It's one of the most recognizable constellations in the heavens, and at one time, when the sky was clearer and everyone was able to see the stars more clearly, it was thought to be the central sun of another universe. Maybe that's still true. It's very powerful. There's a Mars-Moon energy associated with this lunation. Health factors, fevers. It represents blindness, eyesight, and also has a great deal to do with a powerful leader. The famous astrologer Alan Leo from the 19th century had picture symbols with each of the 360 degrees of the zodiac. Today we have several different systems of this, the most famous of which is the Sabian symbol for each degree. But for this degree I'm going to use Alan Leo's suggestion, and his in degrees of the zodiac says there's a powerful leader and opinions voiced and ambition. So that's going to be a theme with events in the world during the next 4 weeks. Uranus, Mercury, and the north node of the moon are all in the sign of Taurus. And on May 25th, in just a few days, Jupiter, the largest planet, and we can actually measure Jupiter's magnetic energy on Earth through radio waves, will be joining Taurus as well. And so we have a really strong emphasis on the Earth signs of the zodiac, and particularly on Taurus, the sign of the bull. This promises a focus on finances and also changes in what the financial structure of the world really means. You can see in the horoscope here that Jupiter will square Pluto as it enters Taurus, and that's going to be the week of May 25th, when Jupiter moves into square Pluto, which is in the very early stages of Aquarius. Willpower, present belief systems, the will of the masses are here. There's a Pluto-Mars opposition, which shows great dissatisfactions, and great groups of people will be taking risks about making changes in what's been the status quo. On a more positive note, the planet Saturn will sextile Mercury. Saturn is in the sympathetic, emotional sign of Pisces, and Mercury again is in financially oriented Taurus. This is excellent for planning, and anything to do with improving the educational system can go well. Jupiter entering Taurus will be about a year-long transit, and it particularly emphasizes the land, ecology, and the earth in a really major way. Speaking of the land, ecology, and the earth, I want to mention how this could affect the field of mycology. Mycology represents the study of mushrooms. And if you've been looking in stores anywhere, you've seen that mushrooms are a big theme in art and even jewelry and fashion right now, especially the fairy tale mushroom. That's the one that's red with the spotted cap. And so there's something called surfing the wood wild web, which means looking at how plants and animals interrelate with each other, just like the World Wide Web interrelates with all of us in using the internet. So if you glance at a group of trees, they can seem solitary and even lonely. This can give an impression of being self-contained individuals standing apart and aloof. Yet legends of talking, socially aware, and sacred trees belie this. There have long been hints that the subconsciousness of trees is expansive and extensive. Researchers and scientists from around the world, working in more than 70 different countries, including the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom and Switzerland, have compiled a database called the Global Forest Initiative. And again, we'll all relate to this more as Jupiter is transiting Taurus. The gist of the project is recognizing and exploring how a subterranean world of roots and fungi, teeming with mushrooms, and the purpose is to allow communication with the trees to communicate with each other. The term that's been coined with this again is the wood wild web. It's actually the oldest and largest of all the social networks, even though we've just recently identified it. The interconnectedness of trees on the wood wide web is predominating humanity. It predates humanity and predates the internet, of course, by many, many millennia. Itself, it's probably as much as 50 million years old. Studies show that trees speak their own language. They share information about insects. They warn each other by producing bitter compounds to protect against destructive pests that are on the way. Dying trees share their DNA with seedlings to help them grow. It's like sharing knowledge from generation to generation, like we might do with our own DNA studies. Through photosynthesis, trees produce much more glucose than they need for themselves as they're transmitting information to nourish the seedlings, just like a parent might nourish a human child, or a pet might nourish a puppy or a kitten. Some trees, such as the black walnut, are different though. They're antisocial. They will attack other trees by producing toxins if seedlings intrude. Doesn't that sound like people? Think about it. Isn't that interesting? Within an established forest are larger hubs of older trees. This is called the mother trees or tree. The mother tree is the dominant or secret leader of the underground world, interconnecting all the different trees. Studies have shown that one hub tree can network with as many as 47 other different trees. Dr. Susan Simard, a professor of forestry at the University of British Columbia, has written a book about this called Finding the Mother Tree. Wonderful book. It opens the path to knowing more about the social network, the conscious world of the forest. The trees have a fascinating social awareness. They cooperate, socialize, and share secrets related to their health and their vulnerable points for the benefit of others. Findings indicate that trees have communities which are not all that different from our own neighborhoods, neighborhood watch programs among the trees. The white strands of mushroom-like organisms called the mycorrhizal fungi are at the core of the wood-wild network, and neither plants nor animals have something in between these mushrooms, like organizing and trees and transmitting the information to others. So what I'm saying is that we people and also animals have our own way of transmitting information to the young, and so does this underground world of fungi linking the different trees, tiny mushrooms all beneath our feet, all around the world. A careful study of tree roots will find them wrapped in a colorful substance of fungi in shades of yellow, purple, white, and even more colors. And this forms a really interesting intertwining carpet beneath the ground, which is the actual link in this separate world of trees. Fungi emerges as mushroom appearing above the ground, often after a rainfall. Have you ever noticed if you go outside after a rainfall, there's a circle of mushrooms there? And many people call this the fairy ring, thinking the wee folk, the little people, have painted them there in the night. Maybe they have, who knows? But they don't have roots or seeds. They just appear. They're just present. And isn't that a magical and interesting way to look at the way the trees might be communicating with each other? These mushrooms are really valuable in the Earth's life cycle, kind of like we think of reincarnation, bringing new life from out of the decay. And the magical world of fungi has been credited with providing mushrooms which offer amazing health benefits, and they're also gourmet delicacies. Many people, including this one, feel mushrooms are very healthy in the diet. They've long inspired superstitions, folklore, myths, and references to sacred magical powers. Over a century ago, Beatrix Potter, the beloved Victorian writer and illustrator, most remembered for the creator of the children's story, if you've ever read of Peter Rabbit, and other characters such as Benjamin Buddy and Squirrel Nutkin, actually began to study what is called the Wood Wide Web. She created details about paintings of mushrooms. She even won acclaim as an early mycologist, and she was expelled from academic circles because of being female, but she didn't let that stop her. Eventually she earned a fortune through Peter Rabbit, don't you love it? And she used that to become involved in the conservation of England's Lake District and preserving the ancient forests there from development. And then she donated the lands and her original manuscripts to the England's National Trust to benefit future generations. Beatrix Potter was an early ecologist and preservationist. She left hints that reveal how she might have been the first to recognize the important interconnectedness of trees have for us and for the arrival of the Wood Wide Web, the global forest, and the initiative of today. So as Jupiter is transiting Taurus, watch to see how this might actually be important in our own world. Speaking of famous predecessors, an astrologer in the United States by the name of Evangeline Adams gave J.P. Morgan all of his financial advice astrologically, and he even acknowledged her by once saying, "Millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do." Don't you love it? And at any rate, while all of this Taurus, a big financial sign, is emphasizing the world around us, I thought we might go through the 12 signs of the Zodiac, your own individual birth signs, to see how this powerful new moon and the moon sign of exaltation is affecting you. Sun sign astrology is the type of astrology that we read in newspaper columns, magazines. Some people dismiss it as a hoax, but actually I think it's the tip of a deeper iceberg, and that there is a lot of truth in it because Evangeline Adams and other early pioneers in popularizing astrology used it. Another one is Grant Louis, who wrote the book Astrology for the Millions. So bearing that in mind, I want to go through the horoscope of this new moon in Taurus and how it might relate to each of the individual birth signs. You can also listen to the segment for your rising sign and your moon, anywhere where you might have a stellium or grouping of planets, to see if that's more apropos to you. If you have a Leo influence, it's all about your appearance, personality, and asserting free will and independence. If you are a Virgo, think of salable job skills and important purchases you might want to make. If you are a Libra, it's all about interacting with siblings, neighbors, and about communication and transportation. For our Scorpio listeners, it's about real estate, home, and family life. Sagittarians, it's about hobbies, games, sports, and playful romance. Capricorns, you'll be focused on daily service, daily routine, and also basic health care. Aquarians, anything to do with the law, teamwork, and partnership. For Pisceans, where as far as the 8th house, it's the spirit world, the afterlife, solving mysteries, and managing invested or inherited money, broad spectrum house there. Aries, you will be looking at the 9th house, which is anything to do with faraway places, foreign travel, and higher education. For you Tauruses, the conjunction of the sun and moon is in your 10th house. It's about career and public visibility, long-term ambitions, and leadership. Geminis, we're looking at the 11th house, which is club and group orientation, and long-term goals and secret wishes. For Cancerians, you will be fed up with a lot of different things with being around people. You'll want more peace and more privacy. Also, being a part of the 12th house, you will be thinking of charity work, quiet good works, and looking toward the future and maybe future incarnations. Taking a look at some of the planetary transits, Venus and Mars are both in the sign of Cancer with this full moon. That emphasizes home, family, heritage, and the generation gap. There is a tremendous emphasis on the sign of Taurus, which again is the land, nature, business and finance, and all the information about the wood wide web. Neptune is in the sign of Pisces along with Saturn. That is an emphasis on the spirit world, the mystical, also the health of the feet. Astrology ties in with different parts of the body. And looking at this, the feet and legs can be emphasized for many people. Pluto, of course, is hovering all year on the Aquarius-Capricorn cusp. And this is all the changes going on in the world around us. Every astrologer in the country is predicting major governmental changes, an upset in the status quo. Some call it the age of Aquarius, and this also will be emphasized as we look at the new moon this month and the chart that we're studying. This is Dikki Jo in Orlando, Florida, wishing you a bright and positive, upbeat new moon.
Reverend Dr. Dikki Jo Mullen, astrologer, psychic, and parapsychologist. Dr. Mullen provides the following services: astrology, psychic, rune, and tarot card readings, face-to-face and Zoom readings and seances, and webinars and face-to-face presentations. Thank you for watching. Reverend Dr. Dikki Jo Mullen can be contacted at her skymaiden@juno.com email address. She also has a Facebook page, which she invites you to view, and her WordPress site, where she has additional resources.